So hello everyone, and first of all, thanks of all for being here and joining today. This webinar is the first time that we attend this kind of format. So fingers crossed that everything goes well, and then at the end of this, you can like learn something and take something home from this demo. In order to keep it clear, the agenda is that there's no agenda. So we'll start with basically a question as it would have been given to us. Let's imagine it's 9 a.m. and then you work in the CI department, and then this request comes into your table. Yeah, we need to map out what in the world Lilly's oral GLP-1 or orforglipron is actually enrolling patients right now, which trials, which countries, and in which phase this is happening. This is something that first off thing we would do is basically like say connect the Amass MCP, and then saying like using the Amass MCP. Please answer this question. Let me share a screen, one sec. Yes. So basically, yeah, we just ensure that the Amass MCP is connected, and we would just like paste it, allow access to this folder. We see that we're starting empty, we're starting with nothing, and let's see how far we can bring that into this like for 30-45 minutes of this webinar. And while this, yeah, like this baseline question is being answered, just a brief context about myself. My name is Lluís. I come from Barcelona, where I studied biomedical engineering, and then came here to Denmark to do the master's in human-centered AI. And been working in Amass for about 1 year now in what's basically the intersection with my two backgrounds. So yeah, not a hardcore software developer by foundation, and that's why I think it's relevant that I'm here and trying to like show you today this webinar, in the sense that the goal here is to be the bridge in between how domain expertise, how scientific expertise can be translated into actual tools that bring benefits on the table. And basically while this is working, I want to highlight a bit this quote. Sorry, I'm playing around with this. It's a bit delayed. Basically it's like how we can ensure how we can ensure that an app actually brings values to us. Nowadays it's super easy. We could just like go to Lovable, go to like Claude or any of these tools, and just paste specs of what we want and say like build an app for that. And usually it works pretty well, but especially in the life sciences domain, we need to control the data layer, what we actually show into that. And that's why we built Amass, that's why we're here. Because let me just share screen again, one sec. That's what we at Amass are aiming to do. So basically we define ourselves now also as the data foundation for life sciences AI. And the whole idea is that by building on top of our API, you can get this like core foundational layer that then you can benefit from current state-of-the-art LLMs models to reason on top. And all this comes, basically some context, all this comes because like there was like this challenge that we did 1-2 months ago about 14 days, 14 apps in order to populate our built app gallery, which basically what we try to showcase here is like all the different like world of possibilities of what was possible to build on top of our API. Again, highlighting this principle of that if the foundation that feeds these apps is not grounded, if you don't control exactly how the data is fetched and retrieved, what you get here is a nice showcase that you cannot trust because you don't know where the answers come from. And that's what we're trying to demo today. Let's go back to Claude, our friend. And basically here, what we're gonna see is like, okay, we gave it again the starting question. We want to know that. And then we can see that it used our Amass connector, and it kind of like query it in order to get a grounded answer on, with the sources actually. That so we can trace it back to each of the sources. But this is, this we could then like, if this was a one-time thing, we could like follow up here saying like, please put that on a table, please put that on an Excel file or like in a document ready to share. And that would be good enough for a one-off assignment. But here the challenge is to take this one step forward, because we keep getting these questions at 9 a.m. We keep getting similar questions with different assets. We want to kind of control all the landscapes and map out what's going on in a reliable way. And so, and so we want to build an app on top of that. So let's see how we can take it from here. And I'll use it as raw, as straight as I would do it. Basically now, just let me think one sec. Yeah. So now I want to verify an API contract on top of this. Here are the requirements of how I picture this working. The idea is that I type an asset name, and I get a grounded answer to this question. But in order to do that reliably, I want to orchestrate a parallel agent on a separate window that basically has access to an emp file with our Amass API key and an MD with the documentation, and maps out in a clear way how the logic and foundation should it exactly be if we wanted to build an app on top of the Amass API. So basically now what I'm doing here, first step, there's not a recipe. I think that with AI, basically, the power resides on figuring out where your area of expertise is, and then like complementing this with delegating all that stuff to AI to cover it for you. So basically now what I'm trying to do here is, I know I want to answer this question. So what I will do, why is this not being open? New terminal, yes, now yes. What I will do here is delegate, I will attach. Yes. So basically what I'll do here now is create an M file and and then reference MD file. And then what I will do is go to our platform again. And first of all, we in order to facilitate this kind of things, we in our documentation, we build some kind of LLM quick reference for AI agents to understand this without us having to read every single page. And then I will copy, I will just copy paste it here. Doing this in a separate window. And then for the M file, I'll also save it here, and I will do this off screen to not reveal any secrets. But the way to do this is basically, again, go here, API keys. We just create a webinar demo 4. We create the key, we copy it, and then we just paste it in the end file. And basically this, right now, this is building as a prompt. So then we can open, let's use the friendly command because we control exactly what we're gonna do here. Let's open a Claude window here. To not scare you, this is basically like another way of talking with Claude. It's similar to Cowork, it's just like a terminal UI. And basically here, what I will do is delegate this task that I'll get from here in order to have like this agent here map out how the API works and document it here. So then we can kind of get a grounded, documented evidence on how the API works, how we can benefit from it in order to answer these questions, and then how we can translate that into backend logic to power an app. And while this is working, that is taking a while, I'll just prepare the second prompt. So after, and I have an assistant working in parallel, I want to define here in this window how the brief should be and what the tool should exactly look like. My constraints are the following ones. Let's just while this is being written, let's just like delegate this task. Basically, it's like design how the API contract is going to be. We don't even need to speak API language. We don't need to speak code. We just like delegate. We know that we want to answer this question, and we want to know like to build that tool to answer that for any asset. So we just send it to Claude, and Claude will start working in parallel. And then let's put back the focus here on these windows. So basically, my constraints are the following one. I would like an interactive map that showcases this by country. And then I want to ensure radical transparency. So every claim or every data point needs to cite the raw source data. For all the other questions where a decision needs to be taken and where your answer would be a guess and mine wouldn't, for example, please ask them to me now so we can be fully aligned when documenting the brief. And then also a shortcut, I have it as a save time. Take your time, leverage your expertise, and ask clarifying questions if and when needed. And then like we now have two agents working in parallel. Here is like the window where we are like actually defining how we aim this app to look like. And on the other one, we are doing like the tedious task that we don't want to get our hands dirty because we're not developers. So we're like delegating to Claude to map out how, given an API key and a brief on what we want to do, that is answer this question, basically how the contract should be, how Amass returns the answers, in which schemas and so on. So yeah, to have it defined for them, like giving all this information to Lovable. And basically, while both of these things are working, let me just go back 1 second to slides. Sorry, that is a bit delayed. So basically what doing here is like 2 tracks. On one side, we're mapping out the exact calls. We're verifying it, so we don't make any assumptions. And we're writing this. And then on the other one, we're kind of deciding how the brief should look like. And then when I think about the brief, and that's why I think it's sometimes important to spend some time, is like what question does it take to start? Let's start simple, because then you can extend it. Which input and which output? Which decisions have we made? That and here is where we bring our area of expertise, because we know the domain, we know the area, and we know what needs to be that specific way. Also, I think it's quite important to define what the app must not do. I think it helps a lot, so we don't get drifted along the way. And then also define how we say that it's done. So back again 1 second to the screen. Sorry for the delay. There's a bit of lag. We need to answer these questions. Who's the primary user and what decisions are they making with this? Again, let's say I work in competitive intelligence, so that's target I want to do. And how granular should the map be? And then for that, let's try to use what we made, we released recently, which is our build assistant, which is again an agent on top of our API. So let's see what happens if we just skip this. And then this will like check the documentation on trial courses specifically. And then it kind of says what's possible for Amass. Let's just take that and then paste it. Yes, let's take the recommendation option, and then let's brief only, because we want the brief and then we want to delegate that to Lovable. So let's specify that here. And we can see that now this is gonna start kind of writing the brief. Here we're still kind of documenting how the API works. And then soon it's gonna be the moment that we move all that to Lovable and we start like building the app. So stay tuned, because the work pays off. And then also later on, I will show how we can benefit from these sessions. So as to set up the foundation, so we don't have to repeat this every time for every tool we want to make. So now we're starting from scratch. We started with a question, which kind of saw how the Amass MCP connector helped answer it in a reliable and grounded way with cited sources. Then we kind of delegated a proper, more exhaustive map up of how we can build on top of this API for that specific scenario on that window. And then here we're kind of defining the brief now. And basically, while we wait, let's again go back to slides a bit. So basically, when I say when I talk about like building something that's compounds, this is how I picture a scenario like this. So like you work in CI or in business development and you need some internal tools. You kind of document everything Amass related on the first folder, where like you store how the API works, the LLM peak reference and all that stuff. And also learnings along the way. So if in this session we figure out that some things don't work as expected, or like the API returns stuff differently as we thought, we document that, so not to be stuck on the same loop every time that we build on this. Then contracts would be, yeah, again, what we're doing on the first window, how the API call should be and what it returns in terms of schemas and formats and stuff like this. And then briefs is what we're doing in parallel to kind of define, yeah, how the app should work. Yeah. So back to sharing screen. Getting there. What we will do after, and we can already start preparing the next prompt, is I want to delegate this to Lovable now, which will be in charge of the UI and the whole app design on top of the logic and documentation and briefs that we have out so far. Yes, read the material in the directory and then write one self-contained prompt for Lovable. The idea is that the prompt should be comprehensive, clear, and self-contained, so everything works as expected. Lovable should ask us on the building process only for an Amass API key, which we will then paste as secrets. Yes, so basically we see that here is still creating the files, and on here we can see that there's some issues about how Turkey is written, for example, which is figuring out these kind of things and like writing them down in a way that then is relevant, because if we, for example, ask this question about Lilly's oral GLP-1 and we see a map, we understand exactly that each country has been gone through a rigorous process to map out how the API contract should be in order to pull out all the relevant trials from it. So yeah, here we have the brief. Yeah, and then like as it highlights here, there's like a disagreement that we said from the build assistant that it returns clean ISO codes, but there's like some specific cases that we found on Turkey that we mapped out, but that's also why this process is like an iterative process and why we kind of do this step-by-step compounding process. Let's hope this finishes soon. Otherwise, I might just move forward. Yeah, we can just send it in parallel. Let's wait a couple of minutes for that, and then let's continue with the slides. Yeah. So basically, what we're doing here, three rules I like to highlight myself, is that try to like clarify exactly how each call is gonna be, like bound it, verify, and then decide the ambiguities yourself. It's here is where you bring your area of expertise. So yeah, so the app then works exactly as expected. This is taking a while, and this is, yeah. So let's just like see what happens if we just like work in parallel, because like this is being written here anyway. There's some already documentation, and there's like the LLM quick reference. And for the sake of demoing it now, what we will do now is like get this Lovable prompt. And meanwhile, yeah, I'll just quickly show one sec what Lovable is for those of you who's not familiar. So basically, Lovable is a quick way to build apps. So you could say here again, I want an app that does a clinical trial landscapes and builds like an interactive map, and this would build that. You could even try to just platform using the documentation and the quick reference. You could even say, I am a CI analyst, build an app which can help me on my day-to-day work. Of course, this is super open, super like not defined, but this is a way also to see how much all this area has progressed, and that with just a simple prompt like this and maybe a bit of iteration, you can get something that actually works. So basically, like now, Lovable is doing in one shot what we are now trying to do properly here. Again, it also has some of questions to clarify. Let's take the standards. And basically what we're trying to, like what Lovable is doing here is in one shot doing all this, all this sequence of defining the brief, defining the specs, figuring out how the API works, and mapping out everything together so to build an app that can benefit us as a CI analyst. And now like the whole idea and the whole like what I want to emphasize also in those webinars is that it pays off most of the time to do the work that we're doing here. It pays off to go through it properly, because now you will see also how the prompt that is building for Lovable here is going to be way more complete than what we had here. But let's see what happens if we just like do one shot just in parallel to kind of contrast both of the approaches. And then also we can see that like the whole idea of building a foundation here and like going through these steps in an orchestrated way is that when we are not clear, like this prompt is not the best prompt, and if I have more time, I would probably like iterate a bit more before just like moving to app specifications. But the whole idea is that if we are a structure, let's just 1 second, new API key, Lovable demo, paste it, and then yes, sorry for that, and then we just paste it here. So what I wanted to say is that if we take the time to kind of structure the approach, like we pointed to a directory, where we kind of like start writing down documents. We document how the API works and all the work that it's doing. The whole thing is that if there's typos, if there's some like contradictions in our prompts or something that is not clear, Claude should be intelligent enough, because now it has all this context, it has access to this folder, to kind of map out and like also like resolve if there's any contradictions before writing this final prompt. While this is waiting, let me think 1 sec. Just like we're using Opus High with thinking mode, which does everything a bit more exhaustively than it should, maybe just for demo purposes. But it's quite insane in the sense that by just giving quite some inputs in the moments where it's needed, you can get so much forward without having to take care of every minor step. So only when critical you had, So basically we say here that it's kind of used the markdown files, it kind of used the briefs. It had some open questions, but due to the documentation, it could close them. also architecture got cheaper. We were maybe like over-engineering it at the beginning, and basically wrote as a prompt. And we can see that now, without even having to think about all that stuff, we can just go here, paste it, boom, and ready to go. And one of the benefits of this, and one of my personal takes on how I see AI evolving towards too, is that we should no longer write these like complex prompts ourselves. Our role should be now like the orchestrator between different agents. So we know that we have a business problem that we want to solve. We know which the question or the problem is. And then from that, we kind of iteratively orchestrate different agents. So we map out each of the required steps, and then we put everything together into a complex prompt in order to like do this kind of like last build. And then while both of these things are working, it's probably gonna take 5 minutes nowadays. It's not that straightforward. What we're gonna do now is try to see what I said before. Try to see how we can save all these learnings into reusable skills and reusable workflows. So next time we want to all like build an internal tool for our team, we don't have to go through this. So basically, it's like, sorry if I'm not super. So basically, so let's learn and write down all what we have done so far. So next time we start building a similar CI tool, we can leverage these learnings in an efficient, optimal way, and discuss and align only where strictly needed, and where we can bring our area of expertise. My take is the following one. I am picturing two skills. First one should be about brainstorming around the app and seeing if it is actually feasible to build something like this on top of our Amass API. The whole point here is just to discuss and map out ideas in order to see if they can be reliably solved. And then second skill should take a more comprehensive, deep approach in order to build the complete app brief and specs as required. Using the Lovable connector, it should stop right before spending any credits, so we can review and approve before moving forward. Also, and what I would try to say here, let's structure this directory in this following way. So every tool brief is clearly organized, and we can learn, and the whole repo compounds as we build more tools. So yeah, let's see if we can also build those. Back to here again, platform, web platform. We go to API keys, webinar demo 5. That's not the best name probably to give to, but it's fine for today. We just like submit it here. And then let's see also how build went. Yeah, so yeah, it used our API. It kind of took all the decisions that we took in the other one for us, but yeah, it built kind of a competitor drug dossier that if we give it a molecule and we kind of like put these filters, we get kind of this UI that as our API offers, we can get like the actual FDA links and all that stuff on it. But this is like a bit of a, the good thing of this is that this is a bit of a raffle, or like it's like playing like flipping a coin, in the sense that maybe you're lucky, maybe it's just like by giving a super unspecific point like question, you can get this out. But let's see what happens when we actually like have to find a bit more and what we get here, and how does it differ. So yes, so we just take the recommendations, and then while this is working, I'll see there's a question in the chat. Sorry for that. Too many tabs and windows to control. Basically, yes, this is the whole idea, is that we use Claude, but we could use any LLMs here in order to answer that and to build this kind of brief and app specs. And then what I'm demoing here is how we can do all the thinking with Claude and then build this prompt that then we can like deliver to Lovable. But the whole idea around this skill and what I'm building now is that Lovable has also an MCP connector. So if we connect both Amass and Lovable, we can do all this thinking and all these sequential steps in the whole Claude session without having to flip between tabs and copy pasting and all that stuff. So we still become the human in the loop and the orchestrator, but all the building process comes through this. And yes, we have this, we have the contract. Now we can see that the AI is structuring it in a more proper and orchestrated way. And then we can also see in parallel, and let's just put everything together, that Lovable is working on our app. Yes. So now it's like kind of reviewing what it did, kind of reflecting and kind of writing down these into reusable skills. So next time we have a structured directory, we have, for example, here the documentation for LLMs. Here is where we will store the skills, and here we have like the first tool that we built, which consists of a brief, of a contract between the agent and the prompt, and then like the prompt that we send to Lovable in that sense. Yes. And with this, I will just wrap it up as soon as it finishes. So now it's creating these files. Now it's kind of writing down this enrollment contract and all the findings that it has. And then here in parallel, Lovable is building the app as we expected. And if we don't have, we can also show you how, like following a same approach, maybe we took a bit more time than like what we could fit in this webinar, but how we build a similar app. So again, what was sent to Lovable is a huge prompt, which of course means that we were not typing that character by character, and that we delegated all this stuff to Claude as the orchestrator. So what we did is, again, we saw that we send that automatically via the MCP, as I showed you here. And then it had already done all this like trial and error, mapping out how the API works, documenting it. So almost as you can see here, with just one prompt and then maybe a couple of, and a refinement iteration, we got to this page where basically, you can type again something like this and get an interactive dashboard that kind of maps out. Everything is fetched directly from the API, so we can ensure that the data is not hallucinated and it's fully grounded and reliable. And it also links to the primary sources in that case. Yes. And then again, there's so much freedom here. You can add filters, you can do all that stuff. But of course, one way would be to follow up here, like change the color, add more stuff, whatever. The other way would be to kind of do all this thinking beforehand, as we have been doing today in the demo. So then the prompt that you send is as complete as possible, and you don't have to iterate on that, which actually like costs credits and like requires a bit more of flexibility. So let's, I'm still writing the skills. I'll just wrap it up after this, but let's let it finish. I want to also demo the Lovable app that we obtained. But we can see that this is, again, kind of still writing. Same as Claude. Same as Lovable. I actually can show you this meanwhile. That our huge prompt, like also Lovable goes through a thinking process. So it kind of writes a plan, we approve the plan, we paste the API key, and then it kind of tests the trial search, inspects that. The backend and the schema are in, so it follows a bit the similar pipeline as we instructed in our prompt to first map out how the logic should work, and then the orchestration on top of that. And now it's working on like on the front end and the TypeScript. And then I also had, just to not waste your time and while we wait for this, anyway, this is going to be recorded and you can skip this, like that parts afterwards. I also made some slides on how we can extend this approach that we tried to demo today in like 45 minutes into 14 usable apps. So we pointed Claude again to the directory we had been working on, and we just said, like, please map this out so we can explain how the logic behind worked. We built 19 apps, but we can see that some concepts did not survive this verification step, and we kind of built and wrote down 14 reusable playbooks, which meant that each time we're building the next app, we could leverage the learnings from the previous ones. So again, what we tried to highlight at the beginning of this webinar is that to build an app is easier nowadays. The challenging part, where we aim to solve that with Amass, is giving this layer of grounding knowledge. So defend the answer that it gives. Again, in one depository, we kind of map out the foundation, and in the other one, the factory. And then we kind of scored each idea into these different modes. And then, of course, there was like a workflow defined by Claude skill that was like, be skeptical, test it exhaustively with the API, and just approve ideas that are actually feasible and where Amass brings genuine value. Yes. So if we had to map out this in 3 steps, that would be where we decide we have an idea, we have a CI problem, and we want to kind of see if it's feasible to build that on top of our API. Then we test it, we prove it, we ask real questions, we agree on how it should look like and what would be the money shot. and we prove that the logic returns exactly what we claim. And then we also add some caching. We add some cost caps to abuse protection because these apps were meant to be public. And then once we have that, all the specs defined and the brief ready, we send it to Lovable. We actually spend Lovable credits, and then we build it. And then there's like a review process that kind of maps out what we built. And yeah. But this is still working. Probably will carry out of the demo today, and I'll just show you the Lovable app. 2 seconds. So it's still working on it. Let's hope it finishes soon. Nowadays, LLMs are way more powerful, which means that you make way less errors in the process, but also means that more stuff needs to be more waiting time sometimes, because I mean, at the end of the day, we're building an app in 45 minutes, which used to take days. And then, of course, LLM has to go through a whole complete thinking process. Yes, and then we can see that now the UI is starting to get, finally, after, yes. So this is the app that we built today in the demo. Let's see how, let's give it just a few more seconds to fully wrap it up. But basically, we can see that if we type orforglipron, we get some status on which we can toggle in, toggle off, and that populates the map automatically. And then this is like also some filters that our API allows us to filter on. And then we can see that how the map is interactive, how we get bigger bubbles for countries where more trials are enrolled, and then how, if we, for example, click in Brazil, we get like the 4 trials here, how we get the raw record, how we get the title exactly as it is, how we get the phase exactly as it is, how we get all the countries where this trial is being, And also there's like an audit, which is quite nice. It's like how this trial ended here, so we can audit why this trial ended here. If we see something off, then it's like we can iterate and then build on top of that. So basically, the whole idea is that nowadays we could enter tomorrow, and then this would be built dynamically, and we will have this always up to date in order to map that out properly. And that if we test it, for example, with another asset, sorry, typo. Come on. So let's try to. Now it's taking a while because basically it's like querying all the Amass API in the logic and the structure that we built. Let's use something more relevant. Let's use doesn't match. Let's use semaglutide. And then with this, we're gonna close the demo. It's quite of a big one, so it's fetching all the data from our API in a structured way. And then we can see also that this finish, that now we have the whole foundation built, that we have 2 skills here. So we can save them. And then, yeah, sorry, one step at a time. Let's go back to here. We can see that with semaglutide, of course, there's way more trials. But again, it's the map. So those are the trials that are actually recruiting. Those are the trials that ended. And yeah, and then we can like play around with it, build tools that actually fit our daily workflows. And you can see that like in a minute, we kind of got this complete dashboard, which is then reusable. And then we can get the primary sources. I think that's like one of the core principles we built upon, that is like radical transparency. Every data point here, if you build on top of our API, should link to the original source. Yes, and then the other thing that we have finished is that now we have these two skills. So next time we want to, yeah, which skills do you have in this repo? Allow. And now basically what will this do is it will use our folder to kind of fetch those skills. And then you could see Amass CI feasibility. And then you could come here and you say, I want to build a tool to map out competitors in the ADC landscape. And basically what that will do is load the skill, and then all we had to do before around Q&A, we ask, we answer back. This thing can benefit now from this whole directory we have built above. It has API contracts, it has data props, it has like the documentation. And what that will do is use the foundation that we've built in order to discuss if this is possible to be built on our API. And if not, it will ask clarifying questions we needed, it will ask back, and with that, it will kind of, yeah, cover the whole scenario. So that was it. Sorry for extending the time so much. It's the first time that we try this kind of webinars. And of course, it's a bit hard to predict how long Claude will take to answer that. But I hope that you could get some useful learnings from it. I hope that, yeah, that was beneficial. And again, what I want to highlight is, please put your area of expertise and your domain expertise when you know it works better, and delegate all these other tasks like coding, like playing with the API, like mapping out how the API works. Delegate those tasks to the AI, and insist that when delegating those tasks, that the output is structured in an organized, orchestrated way. So then when your domain expertise, when you know which problems needs to be solved, where you know how these problems needs to be solved, and where you know how tools could benefit your daily workflows, you can just use Amass, use Lovable, use the combination of both in order to map the whole functionality out without needing to have almost code expertise, and getting an app that you can share with your colleagues and which you can benefit from day to day. So yes, thanks a lot for staying tuned, and yeah, see you in the next one. And